These are Nike SuperShoes that make you run faster, but not in the way you think. See, a lot of people think that the carbon plate inside these shoes acts like a spring and gives you extra bounce with each stride. But that's not entirely true. It's a mixture of foam, rubber, and this carbon plate that work together as a system to give back some of that energy back to the runner. And the system changed everything for Olympic athletes and marathon runners. When Eliud Kipchoge broke that 2-hour marathon record in 2019, he was wearing a prototype of these shoes. Since then, almost every major marathon record has been broken, whether it's Olympics or city marathons. And the data shows that professional runners are consistently about 4% faster in these shoes. 4%. For someone who runs a marathon in 2 hours, that's almost 5 minutes. And that made me wonder that does the system only work for professional athletes, or does it also work for normal runners like you and me? Because honestly, a 4% improvement for a professional athlete and a 4% improvement for us are completely different things. So I bought this entry-level super shoe to test 3 things. First of all, of course, I want to know how does this design actually work. Second, how much difference do they actually make in my running? It's a bit snowy today, just a bit of pain. I can't even speak. And third, are they actually worth the extra price? But before we lace up the shoes, let's first understand the science of running itself. Let's start with the simplest form of movement, walking. When you walk, your heel hits the ground first. Your weight rolls forward through your foot and you push off the ground with your toes. It's a simple movement. Your foot behaves like a rigid lever. It stays relatively stiff, transfers your weight, and moves you forward with very little deformation. The moment you start running, even at slow speeds, that behavior changes. Your heel may still hit first, but now the impact is much higher. When your foot strikes the ground during running, it absorbs roughly 2 to 3 times your body weight in force. And that energy has to go somewhere. Inside your foot, the arch lowers slightly, the plantar fascia stretches, the Achilles tendon loads up, and then your calf muscle activates to control the motion. Your foot stops behaving like a rigid lever and starts behaving like a spring. This is known as the arch spring mechanism. As the arch bends under load, elastic tissues stretch and store some of the impact energy instead of wasting it. And when you push off, that stored energy is released. This process is called elastic energy return, and it's a core part of efficient running. And as you run faster, the forces rises even more. At this point, landing on the heel becomes very inefficient because a heel strike places the foot out in the front of the body, which creates a braking force and sends impact energy directly into the bone. So to avoid this, the foot lands on either midfoot or forefoot because there's more elastic tissue in this area to disperse that extra energy. So most runners naturally shift away from a heel contact to either midfoot or forefoot that put the feet directly underneath the body. And secondly, at these high speeds, each step can generate 4 to 5 times your body weight in force, which is repeated thousands of times in a single run. And to handle this, the foot needs to be a bit flexible when it lands, but stiff when it pushes off. And that stiffness comes from something called the windlass mechanism. As the heel lifts and the toes bend upward during push-off, the plantar fascia tightens. This raises the arch and stiffens the foot, turning it back into a rigid lever at the exact moment you need to propel yourself forward. So during running, your foot consistently switches roles, bending to store the energy during landing and then stiffening to release that energy during push-off. But the system is not perfect. Some energy is lost as heat, some is absorbed by muscles and tendons, and some is lost into the ground. In practice, the body can only return about 60 to 70% of the energy. And as you keep running, the muscles fatigue, tendons lose stiffness, and both the arch spring mechanism and the windlass mechanism become less effective. But what if you could help your foot be more efficient? What if you could reduce the energy loss? And what if you could keep that spring system working even when you're tired? That's exactly what this super shoe was designed to do. This is not just one innovation, it's 3 separate technologies working together as a system. So first, let's talk about this foam. This is not a regular EVA foam that you find in most running shoes. This is something called a Pebax foam. Regular running shoes has a foam that compresses when you land and absorb energy. That's good for cushioning, but most of that energy just turns into heat and gets lost. Pebax foam, on the other hand, is designed to bounce back. It has what's called a high energy return. When you compress it, it gives back about 85 to 87% of the energy you put into it. Compare that to regular foam, which returns maybe around 60 to 65%. But there's one problem with this foam, that it can deform sideways, and that can cause injuries. To avoid that, some shoes add an extra air unit inside the midsoles. These are not just empty air pockets. They have internal fibers running through them, kind of like structure inside a bridge cable. So when you land, the air compresses, but those fibers prevent the air unit from bulging out sideways. So instead of the energy escaping in all directions, it is forced to compress straight down and spring straight back up. And that gives you more energy return with better stability. But the foam alone is not enough, because foam, no matter how good it is, still allows your foot to bend and flex. And when your foot flexes too much during push-off, you're losing energy. And that's where the second piece comes in, the carbon fiber plate. This plate sits in the middle of the foam. It is extremely stiff, light, and it resists bending. So when you push off, instead of your foot flexing and losing energy through that motion, the plate keeps everything rigid. It forces all that stored energy from the foam to go in one direction, that is forward. Think of it like this. Without the plate, your foot and the foam are both bending. So energy is escaping in multiple directions. And with the plate, you're creating like a rigid lever. And all the energy from the foam return gets channeled into propelling you forward. But if you see closely, the plate is not flat, and neither is the shoe. Both have what's called a rocker geometry. If you look at the shoe from the side, it curves up at the toe and slightly at the heel. And the thickest part is in the middle. And the carbon plate also follows the same curve. This shape does something very important. If you see, in a normal shoe, your foot has to do all the work of rolling from heel to toe. Your ankle has to flex through its full range of motion, and your calf muscle had to work really hard to control that movement. But with this curved geometry, the shoe itself rocks you forward. It reduces the range of motion your ankle needs. It guides your foot through the most efficient path from landing to push-off. Less ankle flexion, less muscular effort, smoother transition. The shoe is like mechanically assisting you in every step. Then the third part is the stack height. It's the total thickness of material between your foot and the ground. Super shoes typically have 35 to 40 millimeters of stack height. Compare that to normal running shoes, which only have 20 to 25 millimeters. And why does this matter? Because the taller the stack height, the more foam you have. And the more foam means more material to store and return that energy. It's like having a bigger spring. But there's one catch. A taller shoe is less stable because your foot is further from the ground, which makes it easier to roll an ankle. That's why the carbon plate isn't just about stiffness, it's also about stability. The plate runs through the tall stack of foam and keeps everything from collapsing sideways. And then there are small details that complete the system, like the outsole, the rubber on the bottom. It's just enough for the grip, but not so much that it adds extra weight or stiffness in the wrong places, because you want the plate to control the stiffness, not the rubber. Similarly, the upper mesh is designed to be as light as possible, but still holding your foot in place. Less weight means less energy needed to swing your leg forward with each stride. Everything is optimized for one goal: reduce energy waste and maximize energy return. But there's one problem. Every claim about the super shoes is based on elite runners. they have the elite speed, they have the perfect form, but what happens when a normal runner or a beginner like me puts them on? Can it give me the same energy return on my imperfect form? Can they make me run faster? So to test this, I designed a simple test, a 5-kilometer run. Same route, same conditions, same me, but 2 different shoes. First, I'll run in my old regular running shoes. Then a few days later, after I have fully recovered, I'll run the same route in the SuperShoes. And I'll measure everything. I want to track both the quantitative metrics, like the numbers, and the qualitative metrics, like how it feels. For the numbers, I'm tracking my total time, average pace, heart rate, cadence, and the perceived effort on a scale of 1 to 10. And for the feel, I'm paying attention to my leg fatigue, my foot comfort, energy levels at different points, and how my body feels the next day. The goal here is not to break any records. It is to see if there is a real measurable difference for someone at my level. And more importantly, is the difference worth it? Hello. So it's the first 5K run today. The weather is -5 degrees and we have this straight road ahead of us. It's a bit snowy and a bit icy, but it's gonna be fun. Today I'm gonna run in my normal old running shoes. I already had my warm-up run of 2 kilometers, so let's see how this one goes. It's already 1 kilometer. The pace was 5 minutes 33 seconds. I'm feeling okay. Nothing much. Let's see how it goes. Split 2 kilometers done, 5 minutes 30 seconds. Beautiful. Three kilometer finish, split pace, 5 minutes 36 seconds. 2 more to go. Let's go. .5K is done. It's around 28 minutes some second. You can see the screenshot here. How many second, what is it? I can't even speak. I usually run 2 to 3 kilometers sometimes, but 5K is not my usual run. Just a bit of pain in my front, I don't know what they're called, hamstrings, I think back, the front thighs. Overall, these shoes are like normal. I was able to take out 5 minutes 30-40 seconds in general. Also there's a bit of snow and ice somewhere, so it also slows you down a bit. Now let's see how it goes with the SuperShoes. Now I have to go back all the 5 kilometers. Let's see. See you the next one. Next run, sorry. Ciao. So it's the second day today. Today I'll run with my new shoes. The temperature is again -5 degrees. It's again a bit of icy and snow. Again the same straight road. I already had my warm-up run. So let's start with this new run. First kilometer is in sprint phase, 5 minutes, 2 seconds. It's a bit snowy today, but still better pace. Third kilometer in, pace is 5 minutes 23 seconds. Time is going up. Let's see how it goes next. So 5k is complete. We saved around 2 minutes. Yesterday it was 28, today is 26. So we saved a whole 2 minutes just one day. That's really some energy saving. Also, I don't feel that tired today. My calves are fine. I felt that when you start, you have more energy, so it returns more energy. But as you go into second or third, your energy drops down a bit. Also, the energy goes down. But as you know, like when you enter into the last 2 kilometers, you already start pacing up, and then again it picks things up because the energy return is more. Pretty good. So the test clearly shows that these shoes works. In just one day, without any extra training, without getting any fitter or faster, my time improved by full 2 minutes. And that's something. And remember, I ran this second test while still a bit tired from the previous run on a course that was icy, slippery, and in the cold environment. And despite all of that, I was still faster. But what matters here is the delta, the change from one day to the other. So if you are in better running conditions than me, then maybe you can improve more than me. But the important part is that if I'm starting out today, my baseline is not 28 minutes anymore, it's 26 minutes. That's my new starting point. And as I train in these shoes, as I get stronger, more faster, more efficient, that numbers just keep dropping. And eventually, if I move up to the more advanced super shoes with better foam, lighter plates, and more defined geometry, I'm sure that this improvement will be even more. You know what? Let's do one thing. If this video gets 10,000 likes, then I'll continue to train in these shoes for the next 3 months and buy the most advanced super shoes, and then I run in them, just to see how much I can improve from this baseline of 26 minutes. So if you want that to happen, hit the like button and let's find out just how far these shoes can actually take a normal runner like me. Because at the end of the day, these shoes are just tools. They won't turn you into Kipchoge overnight. They won't magically give you discipline or endurance. But what they will do is remove a little bit of friction between you and your goals. because sometimes the difference between who you are and who you want to be is just a little bit of bounce in every step. That's all for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.